من وايلة اكسيدنت اتنرابة ناشا ليطي مدبال سلطة شكلي اتلا نسيانة بدنا كيسس ات انجري لو و بيالباية قريمخ ان آتن ينكل بتت بيتا خزموخن يطانة اتلوخن بوقارة مخبرون المنيان التلفون 8 أربع شوا وچو 8 تري وچو 5 خا اشتا يعني توكن بيت injuryrights.com شمي إلى توني كالوغراكس كي يمزمن لشان خلية ديما.
Welcome to Assyrian National Council of Illinois. Where we provide home care services for the elderly 60 years and older. For over 20 years, ANCI has worked closely with the state of Illinois to strengthen and expand our home care program. We currently service the Chicagoland area, including Cook, Kane, and DuPage counties. If you are interested in finding out more about our home care services, please visit us at our Chicago or Streamwood office.
Yeah, looks we got a packed house, which will provide us insights into the very heart and soul that is Gishru. You know, so today we embark together on a journey through raw emotions, challenges, and the tangible connections forged with both the people and the land in Assyria. This is an essential step to sustaining our future. The essence of Gishru has always been to nurture our youth, our young professionals, our leaders, providing them with the tools, knowledge, and experiences necessary for a grounded advocacy. Through this presentation, I hope you all gain a deep understanding of the comprehensive experience that is Gishru, but also witness its transformative power in action. All thanks to the partnership between Gishru and the Assyrian Youth Federation of America. Introducing a significant development for this year, Gishru has forged a partnership with AFA. This partnership not only secured some spots for their members on the trip, but also allowed us to fulfill our mission as Gishru. Upon returning to the diaspora after their spring of 2023 trip, I was invited to attend their presentation at the Skokie Public Library. And despite my 10 years of volunteering with Gishru, leading Gishru, co-founding it, I was amazed at how well they captured all the facets of our experience of journeying in the homeland. I knew we had to bring this to convention to share this with all you, and I'm really glad and honored that they're here to deliver, you know, these raw stories and experiences and vision with you all. Following this enlightening presentation by this group, we'll have the opportunity to engage in a facilitated roundtable and a Q&A session. This is where we could dive a little bit deeper into the nuances of Gishru, exchange ideas, and chart a course towards a future that ensures the preservation and promotion of our Assyrian heritage and our homeland. So without further ado, we will start.
Okay, thank you, Joe, for that wonderful introduction to the panelists for this presentation. My name is Ninue Rosho, and I am the current president of the Assyrian Youth Federation of America. And I just want to give you a little brief introduction to what AFA is about so you understand where we're all coming from, and then we'll go into the presentation itself. But the Assyrian Youth Federation, I have to stand on my tippy toes. Oh, no, okay. Is it? Oh, okay. No, I'm just short. Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you. So, the Assyrian Youth Federation of America is an alliance of secular Assyrian youth organizations in the USA. And our goal is to bring together young Assyrians to preserve and empower the Assyrian identity and uplift the Assyrian nation. AFA has a special focus on connecting with and helping the Assyrian people who reside in our ancestral homelands to maintain our existence there and to foster the potential of official nationhood. We started this federation in 2018 here at the convention, so shout out AANF, thank you for providing that. And this idea of taking people that are part of AFA to the homeland started with one of our organizations in LA, ASA of LA, Assyrian Student Association of LA. And unfortunately, from lack of capacity, we weren't able to create a whole trip, but we were like, hey, Gishru has a whole organized thing. Maybe we can work with them. So thank you to Gishru. As Joe mentioned, we had that partnership. And the seven of us, 7 of us, were able to embark on a life-changing journey. And so we're forever grateful for Gishru, and we're hopeful to be able to do this maybe again sometime. I wanted to introduce everybody one by one. So all the way, actually, we'll go to this. So to the right, oh my God, I'm not good with my left and rights. To the right, we have Danny Sada from Kuyama in this image. He's right there. And then next to Danny in the picture, we have Nairi Khamo from the Assyrian Student Association of Chicago. And then in the picture, we have Ramsen next to Nairi, who's part of Cassia, which is Central California. And then we have Fiorella, Ninos, and Bianca, who are all from Assyrian Student Association of LA. And then you have myself in that picture as well, and I reside in Chicago. So we're the 7 from the Youth Federation who were able to join the 30-some participants for this year. And this is the entire group here on the Zaho Bridge. We had about 35 people with us this year, and we started as 35 almost strangers, some of us knew each other, to being brothers and sisters, and we all connected on this trip and this journey, and 12 beautiful days. Oh, I pressed the wrong button. Here's some other participants, a part of the experience. Some of them are sitting here in this room. We have a little Gishru reunion this year, and hopefully we're dancing, celebrating, wearing Julat Khomale for Chab Nisan, singing in the coasters, talking to people in Nala. Beautiful, beautiful time. Oh, we have 38 participants, excuse me. So I just talked about the 7 here and where we're from, but there were plenty of other Assyrians from many different countries. We had obviously a chunk from the United States, but we also had people from Canada. Shout out Canada. Shout out. We have people from the United Kingdom. Woohoo. We had someone from Norway. Yeah, we had someone from Sweden. We had someone from Denmark. And we had people from Australia. So we were all over the world, and we all were able to come back to our homeland and find a part of us we didn't know existed. So I'm very honored to be a part of that 38. When we all started the process of understanding we were going back to the homeland, we all had different reasons to want to go. So I asked my cohorts here what motivated them to want to go, and we all fell on the same ideas. We wanted to return to where we came from. We wanted to see where our ancestors lived. We wanted to see our people in our homeland. We wanted to find a connection to our identity, our culture, and our traditions, and we wanted to strengthen our ties to our culture. And the biggest thing is I want to know where my parents came from. I want to understand the villages they went to. I want to know how they saw their khizmat over there in 30 minutes. And so we're all really very well aligned, and what we gained after it was also very well aligned. We learned that there's a priority to spread the message across the diaspora about the conditions in the homeland for the Assyrians back there. And we gained lifelong connections with people living in the homeland. I know Ramsen, who went to the homeland with Gishru and then was able to go again with the International Youth Conference, and he was able to see the friends that he met just 2 months later. And we gained an even bigger passion for our Assyrian identity, and we found purpose to help our people, and we felt hopeful for the future of Assyrians. But the biggest thing is that word purpose. I think all of us walked in to this trip not knowing what we were going to gain, but we all walked out with a sense of purpose and understanding of what we are going to do within our Assyrian community. And I'm very excited for all of our journeys in this process. So I'm going to let everybody else take the reins on this presentation, but we're going to walk you through, I took you to the pre-trip feelings, and I think there might be a little bit more, but we're going to walk you through what we saw, what we learned, and at the end, we're going to talk about what we essentially gained and we hope for the future. So thank you very much, and I'm going to let it go to the next person.
Hi, everybody. So we stayed in what's known as the Kurdistan Regional Government in northern Iraq, as you can see on this map. And here are a few maps of where we were. So we went into the northern villages, Badawar, Dohuk, Nala, Sapna Valley, Zaho. So I'm sure these names sound familiar, but this is where we were. So the journey begins. So we landed in Erbil International Airport, and we, 38 strangers, some of us knew one another, and we really didn't know what we were signing up for. And we had some thoughts, right? So these were some of the first impressions of the delegates, and then also, some from the Gishru attendees themselves. So I'm just going to read some of them to you. I was apprehensive about being in a Muslim country, but once I was with my people, I felt very much welcomed and at home. Wasn't great, but our Assyrian people in Iraq made me feel so loved and connected with our heritage and our land and our preservation. It was dirty and it felt a little foreign because we couldn't speak the language even to get us to the hotel. I felt like I was in a movie. It didn't feel real that I was actually there. I wish I would have come sooner. I was surprised at how home I felt and comfortable I felt so quickly. Something just clicks. Being there made sense. I was finally home, and I felt at home immediately. It's clearly not our country anymore. So with these thoughts, they were difficult thoughts, thoughts of doubt, thoughts of concern, but also there were a lot of emotions filled with excitement, filled with wonder. And I think that at first we were apprehensive overall, but then being with our Assyrian people in Atra, they welcomed us with open arms. We really felt at ease. And I think the lack of, kind of the last thing, which is it's clearly not our country, the lack of country made us dig deeper into that and consider what is a country. Is it borders? Is it a nation? What is a nation? Is it a common language, common territory? So I think that we define that we do have a nation within us and within our spirit, within ourselves, and we really saw it in Atra, and it showed itself to us. So right away, things started to feel familiar. This is some of the pictures, some of the first impressions, chai sada, fresh yogurt. Various organizations always had welcomed us with food and chai, very comforting. More food. They were grilling in Bedouin. And then the weather. So the weather was unpredictable. We brought jackets, shirts, jeans. And then this is some of the infrastructure in the villages. So the villages were humbling, yet extremely dignified. So people obviously live differently than us. But maybe less than in material things, but not less than in hope, in pride, and in happiness. There is a simple portable stove, there's some water damage, there's some mold. And again, wherever we were always served with tea, candy, with open arms. So this is a picture of the checkpoints. We couldn't actually take a picture of the checkpoints because we weren't allowed, but they're checkpoints in the Kurdistan regional government. And so we would have to stop and tell them who we are and where we're going. And we would be dancing and singing in the coasters, which is also coasters are the buses. And somebody would yell checkpoint, and we would all immediately stop, sit quietly, and identify ourselves as Christians rather than Assyrians. So my peers will walk you through a little bit more of what the checkpoints entailed, but that's some of the beginning of our trip.
That's all right. Thank you, Nairi. All right, I'll be going over the cultural heritage portion of our trip. So in the first pictures you'll see here, we went to our first location, which was the Erbil Civilization Museum, and you were able to see so many artifacts that were preserved within Iraq. And the artifacts in the museums depicted, you could notice throughout like history, from when Assyrians were ruling to now when modern day Islam is present, or when it starts forming, you could see the different kinds of artifacts that change. One can also notice the different like pottery styles that you could see and how it evolved. We also went to the Erbil Citadel, and we were thankfully toured the museum with someone named Lana Hada, which was an archaeologist. She took us within different parts of the citadel, gave us some history. The citadel contained a bazaar where people could buy different spices and goods. It was an important center under the reign of King Ashurbanipal. Our next location was Khinis. This is an Assyrian archaeological site that dates back to 700 BC, and it's massive aqueduct, which led to basically a system. So Nineveh, all of the king's palaces would be able to have some sort of water and different kinds of ways to move their water through the aqueducts. It's known to have been predating actually the Roman aqueducts. Throughout the site, you could see a winged bull. It's on the upper right corner. This relief or stone of the depicted Sennacherib's two deities as well throughout all of Khinis. So you could see at the bottom right as well that there's another stone relief. So you could see throughout this entire Khinis, or the entire archaeological site, different forms of cuneiform and all of the Assyrian ancient sightings. The only problem was throughout all of Khinis, you could see trash and rubbish, and you could tell that the decay of all of the site was falling apart. So this Lamassu in the top right corner, over a year ago, actually looked a lot better than it did now. So the Delale Bridge was built in the Roman Empire. This was our next location. It actually was one of the pictures that Ninue put up with all of us there. This takes place in the Khabo River in the town of Zachel. It contains 5 arches and has many tales regarding its legends and the construction behind it. We also went to Old Alkush, and we were led by Faris Jama. He elaborated how many shops were used in this area of Old Alkush, but because of the buildings are decaying, they no longer are in use, and it would be dangerous for any of the citizens or individuals to use that area. So none of the Alkush people live in this actual location or use it as a building. This next site, before I go into it, I'd like to explain its importance and some history behind it. So many people don't know about the Smela massacre, and I'd like to let everyone know a little bit about it before I go into how important this site was for all of us and bringing us in. In August of 1933, when the Iraq government decided to attack, kill, and loot innocent Assyrian civilians who were unarmed due to systematic prejudices, and they wanted to basically ethnically clean out the country. According to the Assyrian Policy Institute, the massacre led to the death of about 6,000 Assyrians, and this site was one of the most emotional for us. I don't think there was one dry eye when we were there. You could feel all around you how devastating it was. You could feel exactly how anyone with family would feel distressed, would feel disconnected to any kind of form of government that was there, because you couldn't imagine the chaos. This actually, the entrance was behind. We had to go through a local person's house, a Kurdish man's house, to be able to get to this site, because this site is actually a telephone pole. So at the bottom right picture, you could see that was the site. So, all right. I'll be going over next the first stage of the Farad Archaeological Park. This is a 10-kilometer long Assyrian canal, and you can notice in the top right picture that there are 13 panels with 7 deities of different Assyrian gods. I also wanted to talk about the Syriac Heritage Museum. You could see here it was opened in 2015, which is closer than I thought. It shows cases of different Eastern Syriac manuscripts, such as liturgical books, poetries, prayers, and literature. I'll be handing over the next portion of the presentation to Ninos.
Hello, everyone. So I'll be having the pleasure of talking about the churches that we were able to see Go'otra, and we're Assyrian. Church is a big part of our lives, and there's no shortage of churches in Iraq. So one of the first churches that we were able to see was the monastery of Marodishu, and this is in the city of Dere. It dates back to around 4th century, but the date is like controversial. And the significance about this church is that many people, it's known for fertility. So people would come to this church if they're having problems trying to have a child. And there's actually it's caves lining the mountains behind the church. And they would stay in this part of the cave, sleep the night, pray in order to be blessed to have a child. And, if they believe and have that faith, and their prayers were answered, they would have the child grow out their hair, and they would give it back to the church. So you can see a lock of the child's hair in the right-hand side, and my parents actually did this too when I was born. They wanted a son, obviously, like most Assyrians. And so they cut my hair and grew it out. And another beautiful church that we were able to see, it was the St. Hormuz Monastery. It overlooks the Nineveh Plains in Alkush. It's dated back to around the 7th century. And another importance here was, so you guys can kind of see that neck thing on the left-hand side, and people would come from all around to pray and put it around their neck, and they would be healed. So this is kind of a collage of a lot of the churches that we were able to see. Top left, we have the Chaldean Antonian Order of St. Hormuz Monastery of Our Lady Protector of the Crops, long name. And then afterwards, after visiting the Semele site, we went to the church. And it was nice to pray and be there. And then the next church is the monastery of Marodishu, and unfortunately, the state of this church, it's very run down. There's no Assyrians in this area, so no one's taking care of it. And you could see inside the church, there's actually cows inside, and you can see a bunch of trash and a bunch of their droppings. It's a sad thing to see, but luckily there's hope. Rabbi Michael Benyamin, who is a senior minority fellow at United Nations Assistance Mission for Iraq, is working to preserve and restore the church. And we have some more churches down below: Mar al-Rahim, St. George Chaldean Catholic Church, and Mar Tuma Chaldean Church. And here are some more churches as well: Margi Warges Assyrian Church of the East. This was opened in 2019. And in Diana, we skipped bar hopping and we chose to go church hopping. And the cool thing about Diana was there was a lot of small little churches, and it makes, doesn't matter the size, you can still have a church wherever you are, and it was very cool to see. And I'm going to pass it on to Bianca.
Put this in. I don't want to hold it. I got it. Okay, it works now. Okay. Shalom Alochun, B'Shena Tilochun. So we had the opportunity of seeing numerous Assyrian villages. While entering each village, unfortunately, we had to go through those Turkish checkpoints, which Nairi covered already. The first village we visited was Badawar, and Assyrians living here are in constant fear of airstrikes every day, and that's because of the Turkish and Kurds. They're fighting over the land. But the local family that hosted us over there, they were very compassionate and hospitable despite the challenges that they face. And then we visited Al-Kush, it's on the right, and it's known as the Mother of Villages. It's actually one of the oldest Assyrian-owned villages still standing, even so much so that only people of Al-Kush are able to obtain property there. And Al-Kushi local guided us. He gave us a walking tour. We got to see all the historical sites. And then we went to Nala, which is known as Valley of the Kings. It's also one of the few occurrences where we see that the village is entirely populated with Assyrians. The land looked the most fertile here. Ninos introduced Rabbi Michael Benjamin. He actually guided us. He shared the irrigation canal that is critical to Assyrian farmers. Nala, it was unfortunate because they had the most strictest checkpoints. For example, they have really stringent curfews. You need to ask permission to enter the village or let them know that someone's coming, and they have limitation on supplies to bring in. And then we visited Diana, which is on the right side of the screen. And then we toured the village. It's beautiful and abundant churches. And then we played with the local youth. Unfortunately, Gishru lost, so sorry, Gishru. But okay, so we visited 2 cities, right? So I'm going to go over the differences between the cities and villages. The cities we visited, Edabel, and then we know that as Ankawa, and then Dahuk, which we call like Nahadra. And so the cities were really dirty. There was trash everywhere. Dahuk was more of the conservative city compared to the other one. It was very refreshing to see the Assyrian writing on the buildings in the cities. We saw a couple Assyrian businesses, and then it was also refreshing to see that Assyrians do have their own like places to have social events, to hang out and celebrate certain events and parties. And we were very prideful that we got to walk for Chab Nisan with thousands of Assyrians in Dahuk. It was really a unifying moment for us. And then Assyrian villages over there, it seems like they're way more developed than the Kurdish villages, and that's because of the support of our Assyrian organizations that are helping them over there. Assyrians, they have been able to coexist with Kurdish in the cities. But in general, it really seems like Assyrians are basically treated like third-class citizens. They can't get the basic necessities.
And then despite all of the, Turkish airstrikes, PKK attacks, Kurdish land grabbing, which is actually the acquisition of property by fraud or by force, and then all those tight control on the checkpoints, despite all these different types of negative things, we really saw that indigenous Assyrians they still plan to resist and prosper in their indigenous lands. Okay, schools. So we visited a high school and an elementary school in Semele, and Assyrians in this region, they actually get the lowest government funding. For example, a school that we visited, they've had to share locations with Kurdish schools, and then that school also had to relocate 5 times in 2 years. So that was pretty crazy. Let me go back. And then the fact that Assyrians, they have established their own schools, they're able to teach the Assyrian language with the support of Assyrian Aid Society, it really demonstrates that our people have been able to persevere through really self-action. And then on that note, it was interesting that the principal told us the Assyrian students, they do outperform in studies compared to the Kurdish students. Okay, relief efforts. We visited numerous Zoa locations. We got to hear about their mission, their purpose, and their stories. We attended several Shlama Foundation projects, like hearing from the engineers on their solar panel project, and then we also got to see their football leagues. So this is basically essentially building bridges between the youth, helping them create those friendships. Because when realistically would someone from Badawad have conversations and meet someone living in another village? We also heard from Assyrian Aid Society's involvement, which is supporting local Assyrians due to disparities from the government and sustaining the Assyrian school system. They provide transportation for students to go to school, provide wages to teachers, and provide all the school supplies. And there's so much more that they've done that we really experienced and saw over there. And if it wasn't for them, it really seems like there would be no opportunity for Assyrians studying like the language and the history and everything like that. They'd have to go to the Kurdish schools, which we don't want that. Lastly, we were we also saw in Nala that Assyrian Aid Society, they actually provided gas oil generators for the Assyrian villages in the Dohuk Governorate. And then we were introduced lastly to the Assyrian Women's Union. Now, their mission is to empower and combat the repercussions that children and women face in Iraq. It's important to note that it is woman-run, and it's super uncommon in this region. Okay, so we saw numerous Assyrian businesses in the villages and cities. This was a very optimistic sign for us, economically. So on the top, you see Basili's Pizza. Their pizza was actually one of the greatest pizzas. And then we have Nala Cafe that was in the village. We have Nora's Fashion Al-Kush, and then Shlama Foundation, actually, they just did, they financed and updated and refurbished the store. So that was nice to look at. Lastly, we have our workshop. So in the end of our trip, we did 2 of them. And the first workshop was called a reverse mobility workshop with Dylan. He's actually a returnee. He returned to Ankawa in 2019. This workshop really showed how the pivotal role that returnees play in supporting the local Assyrian community. And so he actually started a nonprofit initiative named The Return, which assists individuals in really transitioning in their homeland. You can follow his journey. I provided his Instagram right there. And then our second workshop was by Savina, the president of Etuti Institute. She provided an introduction of Etuti, its remarkable accomplishments in the homeland. It really was a remarkable opportunity for us because we got to contribute in a meaningful way, learning how to execute projects in the homeland, how to build our people together based on specific subjects. So that was exciting to experience. And now I'm going to turn over to Denny.
All right. Shalom al kullachon. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to hold it. Okay. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about the thoughts I had visiting, seeing Yao Shqalam Kullanashe, and kind of the self-reflection I had with everything. I put these two photos up here because these two photos were probably the biggest or most impactful moments of my trip, was meeting people my age who live in Iraq. Because they're like us in a lot of ways, and they're different in so many, but deep down, we all have the same kind of root and core. So I'm going to talk a little bit about connecting, understanding, and challenges that I kind of saw or the thoughts I had. So one thought I had was, can we really feel whole until we understand the joys, pains, and dreams of our people in the homeland, right? I didn't. My whole life, I was told, just go, you got to work hard, you got to read, you got to study, get a good job, get a car, get a house, but it keeps going. And, I did all that, but it was really meeting with them that my life came full circle, I would say, and seeing how they see life. I'm from California. I think of California as my home, but San Jose always felt like there was just something missing. And going and visiting my home country was that thing that was missing. Shouldn't that be our home? Just because there's not a lot of people there? Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, okay. Everyone there, and some of the people that are here right now, actually, Khoyadat Yalope, they've come from Iraq. They all asked us, they didn't ask us for money or anything. They asked us, bas mantiq laqalan, So one thought I had was, how can we use our diaspora voices, our power here to echo the stories of our people in the homeland, bringing them into our daily conversations and lives. We don't talk about what's going on there on a day-to-day basis. They are an afterthought. Even to my parents, they go, and that's wrong. That's so wrong. It's our land. A nation needs three things: people, land, and a language. And those are our lands. And so they need to be a part of our daily conversations and lives. The struggle of our homeland is often a muted whisper in our lives, and it's not a call that rallies us together. People go, they do this. And people are always critical and negative, but nobody's positive. Nobody wants to offer a solution. Our cause should be what brings us together, not divide us. What would happen if we saw their stories, their struggles, their checkpoints, their going 6 months without a salary? What if those were the stories that affected us, right? How much different would we think? What if that was me? What if my dad, hadn't left in 1979 and built a whole nice life for himself in California? What if I was born there and I didn't have opportunity? How would I feel about people in diaspora? We're always worried about preserving, but never renewing. We have forgotten in diaspora that our people from the homeland, they learn in Surith, they know everything about our traditions and cultures. They are the fountain. Like with preserving, just like anything you put in the fridge, it will go bad. You need to renew. You need to build. You need to create and spread. The whole time I was like, how can we get people to see what's going on? It's so sad that we just don't know. And we don't know because our people there they're hostages. We are living hostages in our own homeland. And seeing that just absolutely, you know, I got crazy. Ask anyone. Ever since I went on this trip, I've been just trying to get awareness and echo whatever I saw. You know, do we care enough? You know, people are always like, oh, what organization does this? What does this? You know, how can I help? Whatever. I'm like, everyone has their own set of talents and they can fill any hole that they see. All you have to do is care. And in my opinion, that starts with going and visiting the lands of your forefathers. Oh, thank you.
Shalom Aleichem. Besimah to do with you. 1 second. Okay, so we just heard about this amazing time we all had from my lovely colleagues, how beautiful our homeland is, how renewing it is to go and see the land of your forefathers, experience your people in their soil, feel that connection. However, the truth of the matter is that that won't last for much longer. So the patriarch of the Chaldean Church, Marsako, said in an interview last year that 20 Christian Assyrian families immigrate out of Iraq every month. It's about 80 people a month are leaving the homeland. So if we don't change something soon, if the quality of life or the system that is happening there doesn't change within the next generation, we probably won't have people in the homeland left if we do the math. So that's why, you know, we need to discuss here, or that's why I'm discussing the push and the pull factors of our people in the homeland. The first and the major pull now is not it's not safety, it's not terrorist threats, it's not discrimination that we saw in 2006, 2007, 2014. It's mostly economic. Our people don't have economic opportunity in the homeland. They are treated as second or third class citizens because of their political affiliations or who they are. And so it's difficult to open a business. It's difficult to find a job. Our people, like they mentioned, are some of the best in the top of their classes in college and in high school. Yet when they graduate, they can't find jobs because they don't have that political connection, wasta. They don't have wasta to get them a job. Wasta is a political connection. Because they're not the powers that be. The powers that be are, you either have to, other people, Qardaya, Arabaya, they're going to give jobs to their people, not to us. And so what can we do is that we can create economic opportunities for our people there through investments, not handouts. Investments incentivize people to stay there, incentivize us in the diaspora to invest so that we get something out of it, not just, oh, I felt good because I donated to this organization. No, you're getting an income, a return on your investment, and you're providing a livelihood for someone there. This is just an example of a business in Nala. They do tahini, sesame seeds. They grow it there. Instead of just selling the sesame seeds for a couple cents on the kilo, they can process it into tahin and sell it for a couple dollars per kilo. So instead of just being a subsistence farmer, you build a factory and then hire a manager, and then they produce that sesame seeds into tahin and sell it, and makes more money for the people there, and then also provides a small income for the investor. Other things could be microfinancing, which are small loans of up to like $50,000. And, you know, loans, you get an interest on it and they pay it back. It's very popular in sub-Saharan Africa and South America nowadays, in Bangladesh. Education and training and remote work opportunities. If there's business owners here who can have a secretary that's remote, they can find someone back home, they hire them to do remote work and then pay them an American salary. And that's providing a job there and having providing income for someone there and having your job duties filled here if you're a business owner. The secondary push factor from the homeland is the lack of order and lack of rule of law in Iraq. due to it being a post-war country, and a corrupt country. The government is corrupt, and it's starting to rebuild. It's starting to heal from the 20 years of war that it went through, but it's still not there. Mar Nicodemus, the bishop of Mosul, I believe, Syriac Orthodox bishop, said that Christians, Assyrians, can't live in a place where there is lack of order. We like order, we like rules, we like to follow rules. And so that's another reason people are leaving. They want to live gunidam, in order. And they think the West is all orderly and it's got rules and they've got street lights and they've got stop signs and you follow it. And it's desirable because our people like to be in order, we like to be in a civilized society. And so what we could do is advocate to change that, kind of. Some of you guys might have known that some issues that have happened this summer. Marasako was exiled out of Baghdad because of a feud with some politicians there. We had the checkpoint in Nala that was closed for an Assyrian family. They weren't able to get home after going to the hospital. And I'm mentioning this because our people in the diaspora were able to be vocal. We are organized. We had the checkpoint closed or opened for 24 hours within one day because the people back home protested and the people here used social media as a weapon. As Yuqra Sargis said, I think he's somewhere here. He said, our number one weapon in the diaspora is our social media, our cell phones, because we can be the voice for the people there. And it works. The example is this checkpoint. There was also other happened a couple years ago where there was a land grabbing issue. Our people in the diaspora were vocal, and then we won the case in the courts and back home because our people were vocal. They're afraid of us. They're afraid of Assyrians with American passports, Australian passports, European passports, because of their image. And so if we don't keep quiet, right now we're a thorn in the people's side, and then us, with our voices and our American passports and our connections to politicians and our connections to the embassies, we can shove that thorn a little harder in them to make them do what we want them to do. Writing letters to politicians, publishing articles that highlight the Assyrian struggles within the federal Iraq and within the Kurdish government. And some of those are discrimination, forced conversion. I forgot to mention that one. It's not forced conversion by a sword. But in the way the government of Iraq works is that if a father becomes Muslim, his children are now scheduled as or registered as Muslim in the government. And so there are issues between husband and wife where the husband will go and convert for whatever reason, either to marry someone else or to get a divorce, or he lost custody and wants to gain custody again. He converts to Islam. Now his children are Muslim, and their generations will now be Muslim in the eyes of the government. So sometimes these kids don't even know. They get their 20, 25, they want to get married, they go to the church, and then the church is like, well, you can't get married here. You're registered as Muslim in the country, so you have to go to a mosque. Our people back home are trying to fix this. Our politicians, our church leaders, they're trying to fix this. That's just one issue I wanted to highlight. And land grabbing and corruption. So these are all issues that whenever we hear it happening there, we write a letter to our politicians, write a letter to the Kurdish ambassador in Washington, write a letter to the UN or the EU Parliament. I'm not familiar with other forms of government outside of the US, sorry. But like our state senators, all of them write letters, go to meetings if we live close enough, and advocate for the Assyrian cause in the homeland. How can we? Also, not just by writing letters, but being active in our local organizations within our communities. We're all youth members here, so we're all part of AFA. We're all part of our local youth organizations, Kessia, ASAVE Chicago, ASAVE LA, Koyama. That's how we do our part by joining these youth organizations. But there's also many other organizations that Assyrians have, AANF and all of its affiliates, and then all the other, we've heard Assyrian Aid Society was speaking right before us. Join something that you think will help you, or not, that you can be a help of. Is it humanitarian? Is it language preservation? Is it food production? Is it aid? Is it politics? Whatever that you think your talents will fit, join that organization and be a voice for your people. Also, Danny stressed this a lot, visit your homeland. You can't advocate for something if you don't know what it is. You can't, we all have this image of the Assyrian homeland. It's this place in Upper Mesopotamia that we've all heard of. Our parents were from there. You think it's dirt and mud brick houses. It's not. It's developed. It's beautiful. It's mountains. It's rivers. It's valleys. visit. So you know what you're advocating for you, so you know the people that you're advocating for. I went in April, met amazing people, some amazing friends. I went back in August. People, honestly, shame on me, I forgot some of them. They remembered me. I was maybe spoke to them for a 30-minute conversation. They come up to me, oh, sorry. I was like, thank you, they're very hospitable people there. They are hospitality here in the West is not so good. But yes, so visit and advocate for our people. And this is just a quote, just to say, my people, you want me to read it now here? Yeah. My people, the night is beautiful, so the faces of my people. The stars are beautiful, so the eyes of my people. Beautiful also is the sun. Beautiful also are the souls of my people. Thank you. Saudi.
Thank you so much to this panel. I really hope you're able to kind of get that mission that we wanted, to get those raw emotions and stories from them being really, truly trailblazers, during this trip, this 2023. Every year we talk to the Gishru participants, like, oh, our year was the best, our year was the best, and again, this is another great year for Gishru, and I want to highlight a few things before we get into our facilitated panel. First of all, I want to highlight that we do have two members from our really great partnership. If it wasn't for them, Gishru would still be an iota in imagination. We have Sargis Yochena and Benello, if you guys could stand up. They are here from Iraq. Sargis Ila Mashtalani, he's the president of the Khuyada chapter in Baghdad itself. وأنا بخلطة أوقاتي Assyrian language teacher, right? Okay. And then I also want to highlight all the Gishru alumni that are here from any years. Can you please stand up? Can you please stand up? Can you please all stand up? Yeah. Turn around, turn around, turn around. Face the crowd, face the crowd. All right. So let's start off with a little bit of facilitated discussion here. I want everyone from 2023 to participate. So that includes you three up here, you as well, okay? So let's start off with, a question that, most of our audience would definitely want to hear. And that is, what was the most surprising or unexpected moment of your trip? Who wants to take a stab at this? Go ahead. Yeah, those work.
Stand, sit, whatever. When I first landed, you guys remember the slide that said, the first things we thought when we first got there? I was the one who said, it's clearly not our country anymore. Because you land, the signs, the streets, it's not even in Arabic. It's in Kurdish. And the first moment we get out of the airport, we hold an Assyrian flag. There's like 15 of us all from America. We're all happy. We ask one of the Kurdish cab drivers to take a photo, and there's a bunch of them standing. And one of them comes up to someone. They're like, what's that flag? And I'm like, oh, this is how it's going to be. And that was a pretty good example. It's a really good reality check. And it definitely perked me up to being a lot more open to seeing the reality there, right? It's not all fun and, Chabnisan and stuff. It's some of them literally don't know who we are. So that was surprising.
Anyone else?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So for me, the most surprising thing was realizing that no matter what background you might come from, when you say, I'm Assyrian from X, I'm Assyrian from this place, my parents are from here or there, you're Assyrian. When you go there, despite me not understanding many of the dialects right away, we sat there, we had late night vocabulary lessons on the coasters, of which we have some real knowledgeable people here. But you realize at the end of the day, or in the beginning of the day, that we're all Assyrian, and I felt a sense of welcome. I felt a sense of understanding and friendship that truly, not just among us, but truly among the people there as well, that even if there's some dialectical differences, even if there's some difference in what my favorite food might be or where my parents came from, at the end of the day, we're all Assyrian. So stick with that thought, and if there's anybody that thinks about whether or not it's something that they can relate to, depending on where their parents are from or where they grew up themselves, whether it's in the States, Europe, Canada, wherever that may be, Australia, at the end of the day, we're all Assyrian. That's something to be eminently proud of, and that's something that no matter who takes our signs away, our language away, which cab driver doesn't recognize it, to Danny's point, we have it in our hearts.
All right, all right.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, just like David, he said they're very welcoming. They really are. When you say you're Assyrian, it really seems like, you know, your family, like blood, and they really treat you like with their arms open for you. And it's just sad that they're treated as like third-class citizens over there. So it just shows like how really like unified they are over there, and it means a lot. And that's something that we need to like continue here in the homeland.
Okay, great. So we'll continue into this theme of people, because that truly, you know, when we think about Assyria as a first-time person to go to Iraq, you're thinking about the sites, you know, you're thinking about the archaeological sites, you know, our heritage. But what really gets you connected and what you keep thinking when you come back are the people. And so can you please describe a specific interaction with a local that has left a lasting impression on you? Danny, go ahead.
Yeah, I had one. It was the first night we went to Nahadra or Dohuk. We met with the youth group of a church named Maranatse. And this was my first time interacting with, you know, Assyrian youth. I put it on the slides and stuff. And it was a little different interacting with them. And there was this kid, and he was 15, and I'm standing next to him, and I just start talking to him in Sudath. First time ever. And it's you know, it's just basic conversation, you know, are you in school, stuff like that. And then there was this pause, and he's like, your parents left a while ago, huh? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I can tell. And I'm like, and he just looks at me and he goes, and no one has ever said those words to me. And I never thought they'd be said. So just those words showed their resilience, and it made me want to carry that home.
Thank you for sharing that, Danny. Anyone else?
We stayed in Nala for one night, and the family that hosted us, there was like a Nana Sota over there, and she was really sweet. And you know, we had like different dialects, but I was able to have like a conversation with her, and it just was very like heartfelt conversation. I'm getting emotional now because it just meant a lot to me. Yeah, basically, it just like what I experienced there was like a good feeling, you know. I didn't want to cry, but that's just how much like passionate I am of like, and how we are of like being over there. Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. To touch on Nala, we got to stay one night in that village, and it was an amazing experience because the rest of the trip we were in hotels and we were with each other, but we kind of got split up here, and we stayed in one of the villagers' homes, and they had 5 daughters. And there were 3 girls from our Gishru trip that got to stay with them, and we hung out with them all night and with their mom, and we didn't get to see the dad until the next morning. And then the next morning he introduced himself to us, and they made us this amazing breakfast, and he took us out and showed us his chickens and goats, and you know, they do all this themselves, and they we were taking up a lot of space. We felt like they had mattresses on the floor for us, and we thanked them over and over again. And at the end of it, the dad finally said, you know, we were so happy to have you guys here. And he said, I now have 8 daughters, because there was 3 of us that stayed with him, and we were just like, oh my gosh. So to touch on how hospitable they are there, it's unmatched. So, yeah.
You know, you guys are really truly getting a true glimpse of Gishru. It really is a roller coaster of emotions, and you know, this is why people get so close, because we're sharing these raw, you know, emotions with each other, and tears, and you know, it's tears of happiness and sadness and hope. And I'm so glad that it's on display for everyone today. Sorry to use you all. All right. So, any other specific examples?
So one night, me, David, Daniel, and one of our cohorts from Australia named Sargon were like hungry at night, and so we decided to go to this shawarma place. It was like this, I don't know, shawarma sandwich. It was the only place I think open at night. So I think we took a cab. We took a cab there, and I don't remember exactly. I don't remember if it was like towards the end of the trip, but it was in Dahuk, and none of us didn't know how to order. Danny was like helping us the most because I think he had like more vocabulary than the other three. So we're struggling trying to order just to get like a $1 like sandwich. And there's this guy, he just started speaking to me, and I understood everything he said. And I was like, why am I understanding this guy? And he was speaking Surah, but I didn't even realize it because I didn't expect a Surah to be like right there watching us struggle. And he was like, and I was like, why didn't you say anything? He was like, oh, I don't know. I just wanted to see you like just speak. So he was a Turkabnaya in Assyrian from Turkepe in Dahok, and he was just like watching us order, and then he like spoke with us a bit, and his name is Shamoun Hermes, and he recognized me because of my Assyrian tattoo of the Star of Shemesh. He was like, oh, I knew you're Assyrian because of that. And one thing he gave me was like this little Zohar flag he had in his pocket, and he's like, take this to remember me, and take it back with you. And now I have it in my room.
Oh my God. We have to bring tissues next time, right? All right. And anyone else? Anyone else wants to share a specific? Okay. All right.
Thanks. So also similar to what Danny showed on the first night, we met with the youth group, and it was amazing to meet and see all these people. Well, prior to that, and I want to also take a moment to thank the organizers, Joe, and the organizers of Gishru. I mean, fantastic, just absolutely. And of course, all of our people there also. Fantastic. But so part of this, and Peter Ibrahim is obviously one of those people. Peter and I go back, we play music together. He goes, bring the guitar. I'm like, Peter, I don't want to bring the guitar. I have to bring the case. It's huge. He goes, bring the guitar. They want to hear us perform. I said, all right. So I bring this guitar. It gets in everybody's way. I'm bumping through the aisles every time. So finally, we get to this evening with the youth, and we sit down, and they go, okay, we want to hear you guys perform something. So okay, great. We set up. As I'm pulling on my guitar, this maybe 12, 13-year-old young guy comes over, and he's kind of looking at me. He's beaming, and I'm looking at him. I'm like, hi. He goes, guitar. I said, yeah. And I'm like, of course. And so I open it up, and he's just looking at it, and he's looking at me like, and he's like, wants me to like see it. I said, why don't you try it out? Do you play? He goes, no, I don't play. No, I don't play. I'm going to learn. So I just sat there for a second. I said, you know what? We went to do a sound check. There was no sound check. There was a microphone. I was going to play the guitar. So we went over acting like we're doing stuff in the back. And this kid sat there with this guitar and just strumming it to himself. Didn't know a lick of how to play guitar, but he was strumming it to himself. And I couldn't take the thing away from him. I came over and said, hey, why don't you play the first song? Long story short, at Khabnisan after the parade, we met up and got to see Asher Betserges perform, which was just once-in-a-lifetime experience, by the way. I feel like somebody pulling on my shirt, and I turn around, and it's this young guy, and he's like with his buddies, right? And he's like, this is the guy, and he's pointing me out, and I'm like, you're the guy. As we're talking, my thought is this: we have impacts just like people have had impact on our lives. Who knows, right? But that kid might turn out someday, not because of me, but because of his own intention and will, to be a great musician. But the reality is we have so many connections with people that it's not people there, it's our people. And that was just something really meaningful that stuck with me.
I'm going to break it with a message from Khoyada.
Shalom alaikum. أنا ابن سرقس وخنا من العراق. ابن هدام جو Iraqi Youth Parliament. هذا ابن بورد نمبر جو خويادة ديالوبه. تزوثا رابن خذايتين خزايا خو ومن دي يعني تنخذاي بيزود قد خزاين يالد قشرو. لينا أختي أنتري سريو ما نجو أثرة ودير لخا منشية تمرخ خشت الأثرة هنا بليخة وهنا ويدخا باوربوينت رابا ستودنتا ومغزوي لقى كلنا شلخا كونفيشن مودي لويدا يو أثرا وأنا خشن أو إلى خامن دن طنياثا تي هماش بهالخ لا طنياثا شريرة اتبلخانة ومتنا يو أثرا طنياثا أكيد قشرو هل من أثرا يتنقبل طيبوثا قد أوى بلخانة طاوة وهذا اللي لخا يو جالوثا من أمر قد أخنا المخويا ديالو بهما شيء صورا وينرابا خلانا من يالد قشرو من يومان قما يتشت أستد قشرو وهل هدي كل شيء تاي قبل خلو وهما شيء قد قبل خلو جو باعو ديان جو عراق بلقي أوبي على قشرو يطي مختخزق إغذا هذا ليه خشوخ زاي خك مناشن خراية صب من يوم قمايا خشوخ إغذا هذا يوخ مخوناثا ميرال جو خبنيسن أجثيلو كسن يالد قشرو أو هاثن قم شوشن يوذيو خبنيسن قد يعني ونيشة خثتت خيوثة شيتا خثة أخلي وشد آسن جو خبنيسن كل شيتا يخثخلو يصورا بيخلوخن كلوخن وبيخالد شد آسن دين لخب خالد على هماشا يصورا بهابي خلاني مغضاده وبين أمن قد شواوي وشريكه وخخجي دجمنه يزدي من دو خوياده ومن دو يشرد إذ بيلوخو بخالد على هم شاوي قيانا وهاويتم بالسيمة رابا
بسيمة رابا أخوني.
Okay, idea. The last question قام أزخ public Q&A. This is for NBAT, the people that are interested to come on the Gishru trip. If you could send a message back in time, if you had a time travel machine, back in time, to your pre-Gishru self, what wisdom or advice would you give yourself?
Why didn't you go earlier? Why didn't you go earlier is the one advice I would have gave myself. The second one I would do is probably, you know, here in the U.S. we have, maybe we're disconnected with our Assyrian community. Maybe we don't feel at home. And instead of trying to feel at home, be the home. So I think that's where I was. I kept trying to look for people to accept me, look for people to, like, where do I fit in? Where do I fit in? Maybe you should start the fitting in. Maybe you should be the one to grab. So that's one thing I would have told, like, myself. And I think Gishru is what helped me specifically be able to do that, because I saw how many people there didn't matter who I was, if I knew the language, if I didn't, just like David was saying, it was the fact that they didn't care, they just had already accepted me. They had already been like, you know what, I'm going to be that for someone else. So that's what I would give myself.
Who else wants to take a stab at that?
I just think that this is one of those trips that you take, you know, like 2 weeks off, thinking, okay, I'll go, I'll come back and join my normal life. But realistically, you come back and for months, not even 2 weeks, a month, but for several months, even up until now, you're going to have this emotional impact on you that stays with you. So it's like you really don't stay the same. So that's one thing.
Who else before we take?
I'd like to add to what Fio had mentioned. Go on this trip. It's absolutely essential that you do this. And when Gishru first started, every year Susie would reach out to me and I would say, yes, I'm going to go. And you think, how am I going to take 2 weeks off work? How am I going to do this? I don't know what it's like. You know, you might be nervous. You have to go on this trip. And I think it's very easy for all of us in our lives for any little thing to happen that we, like you mentioned, disconnect ourselves from our Assyrian community. And even if that's happened to you, that's okay. You will never feel more Assyrian until you go back and visit and meet with these people. And then, like Christine had mentioned, when you come back, it just has this lasting impression on you. It is truly a life-changing experience that every Assyrian must go on. So.
Who else?
One quick thing I would say is be in the presence of the people there and be in the presence of the people that you meet there. Be present alongside with them when you're there. Like, you're in their footsteps, or just listen, be present in the moment, in the whole experience.
Rob. I got to get this guy up here.
All right, you called me out. So similar to Christine, I fully intended on going on a 2-week vacation. I didn't have family in Iraq. My family's from Iran and Syria. So I was like, okay, it's a 2-week vacation. I don't have anybody there, no history. So I learned a lot about my family, and I think a lot of what I learned is that this is not, it's not so much different countries. This is all Assyrian land. And you have to go there with a clean slate. You can't fight it. It's going to leave its impression on you, no matter what you do. And I think a lot of us were very, we were profoundly changed. Like, you can't really fight it. It changes who you are, and everyone has to go.
All right, great. We'll open up to the public for Q&As. I did promise Rabi here that he could give his first.
Thank you. Hasn't come in. سلام عليكم. أنا شني أبرم شابير إليه.
Shana.
Really Shapira. My family's name إليه. It's not Leon Shapira, but I don't know why. Family's name Shapira إليه. خدتها قريبة من جشرو. خدتها. قاموا ودلي أبلاي قد هاون مني مروساوي تعطي لي قبل خلوه. Well, إنا بشلي هالدامة من لبة جيبها. ليه ما ستفضيلي؟ ليه ما صير ريجكت؟ ليه ما سوي لي ريجكت؟ لأن هالداموتي من لبة ليه بضايته داخلي. إما خبرنا من رابعة لا بيولوجيكلي تيتو بنات دي ولا نواج دي بس امتنا ايتو بنات دي دوزوتا إما خبرنا من رابعة زي ما كريه لشنو جشرو خاطخة اتلان organization شمي تريطلا ما تريلي إن هيش من دي لودي إن شو جبارة شو جبارة تنواذا جشرو دوزوتا رابعا أنا يخشون من رزقين I'm very lucky يجتاوي تاما بريشايت أن يومان نيسان خب نيسان توي مزلتها يخزن نموينا وادا ودي بش يعني طبعا أن ما شاء الله خدمري على ناطر جونك أنا يازي مطواتي صات اشتي قيمي صات 5 ليدي ريال صات رسرب ليلي أنا اللي ماصن بس إن دي بغزان رابعة موينا وادا بالزودة من تهاوي تاما جو أطرا ديان ليل بيرفكت دوسينا ايتي من دياني بوزيتيف رابا سودانا وايتي من دياني نيجاتيف ايتين رابا بس اطر دي نيلة ليه ما صغنا كرخلي كما تاوي انا نهاوي لي خاخونا ليه بالخ بطيلة ليه اشاتي شتياني ليه دراكس مبلخ من دي انا ليه ما صغنا كرني واخوني ليه هذا اطري ليه انيتين جاوي زبلة انيتين جاوي بزباطنا رات الديان جاريلاونا كرخلة أو إلى أطر الدين وقد مزبطخ إلى أطر الدين هماشا جاريلاونا يصورة the only organization تيلا بياشا جشرو it's real جشرو بالسيارة إلى أطرا من جالوتا خامندي بين مدخرين مزلته يعني بريت يوديلا تاما فمزملك ما سودنت لا خزيتو زودة من إسري خمشاء البيتلاي البيناشي طامنا It's not that the point إنه كمان عشانه بس the point إلى مطايلة مسج قا شو الدين قا نخراي الدين يعجبي يعني أي شيء تعمل توصيلهم ورجو بازر يعني مزلتها بيرد بخاشة ورجو بازر ناشية سكاوت بزمارة وبصراخة أن شوان قرداي بليطة من مدرسة بشجاري يشوق بيو كم خطريشن يكسخ خخمان لان خيو يدخل سقط الطورة يعني رمت الرابة كلي والي يدخل دفن الجدة وخال خوري ناشط أطرة تاما والدفن كلي وخا قرداية قرداية بمو بتيخي يدخل بمو يشو قجوبه وبيو شوريلو طرطومة قجاني أنا تبخت دولة اللي طبعا لدي الموي المعرب لشان قرداية بقرية أو خوري قرداية ما المعرب طرطومة ما رأي بالا أن تراي خام تودي دولة يعني أطرب تودي. However, ليلة بس إنه بغزاية أمنين وقمضة أنا بتبرنا خاجة خيتا بخاشة وبغزاية أما إنا أت أزل أطرا بمرنا صدو زوتا مع أنا I'm very lucky خيشن كتشيتا بالجد خاجة انتري يازم بريشايت خبنيسا. You guarantee, you secure a place. الله قدنا أنا مثلي سقلي الله بقري مر بطرس خيشة الأطرين لا المري لن خيشة بوس قنورة مين إن المري خيشة تعمر خوش برديسة you secured your place بس إن رابعيته هم نيتو اللي أنا دفتن بمخدشيلة إن تازيتن أو فين شاقل لي ناشا لمن شيليج thank you very much جشرو خيوتن خازق لهم يشتخي دا طامشي thank you
بس ما رابع كشي تام زمت لخا convention قاتن. Okay, any other questions for the public? Yeah.
I just have a statement because I'm jealous of my children. They went somewhere I haven't been, so you need a subdivision for 50 and over, because we will all go. So
the Assyrian Aid Society has a trip.
Yeah. So that's why Assyrian Society is capitalizing on our restrictions. You know, they're taking advantage, but it's okay. We all work together. All right.
Oh my God. Oh, he looks like me. No way.
Rabbi Yosef.
مصر المخا اوكي السلام عليكم كلكم
شينا
تمنى بيني استقرار من نوخم دنا جهل خجلنا برمويا نخم ويربشني. We are the dying generation. Me, Anna, I am over 80 years old, but we did our part when we are as young as you are. Now it's your time. Please take the flag and keep going. Without you, we will get nowhere. Because, as I said, we are the dying generation. Our generation, my friend Aprim and people like that, we did a lot when we were as young as you are. So remember this, that our nation that has given so much to the world with every epoch of life, and now we are a dying generation, and we are all dependent on you. Try your heart, please. Don't spare any time, don't spare any effort that you can do, and keep the Gishru, this bridge between the Atra and us, always alive, and keep going on this so that generations will go through that bridge to our beautiful destiny on the good future. And thank you for this organization. We are blessed to have this organization. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
So from my understanding, it's a application process to, like, I guess, volunteer for Gishru. How competitive is that application process? Because I've heard that it requires, let's say, a prerequisite of already being involved in the community, and then some people are less involved. So, yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, you guys went through the application cycle, so you would know best.
You apply, and then they...
Yeah, so, we're pretty restricted on our logistically, because some of these metwati that we go to are very small, so we can't inundate with 80 people there, I mean, we'll take over all the basic services that they were allotted for the entire year in one day. So we are limited by 35. There are some rumors that we maybe go up to 70 this upcoming year, with 2 different tracks, itineraries, and maybe even compete with the Assyrian Society and get some older people to come with us as well, as long as the price is right. But so the application right now, we are looking for people that are invested in the community, but we are very diverse in our application cycle. What does that mean? We want an allotment of everything. We want people that are really involved. That's the reason why we asked that question. But we also want people that are not involved. So we want to bring all the fabrics of our society there, a little microcosm of the Assyrian community and diaspora, in Iraq during that 2-week time. So don't be afraid of the application cycle. Fill it out. We're going to try to get everyone that wants to go on the trip. It was only last year where we actually were able, we had to refuse entry, refuse, because before, previous years, we would be able to get everyone that wanted to come on the trip to come. Last year, we hit a significant logistical burden, but we're not foreseeing that this year. So just apply early. We're gonna open up in the next week or so, and it's gonna run for about a month. So I have the sign-up QR code that gets us to our mailing list, our websites. Put up your name, we'll email you right when your application is available.
I'd like to add, there were people on our trip who didn't even know they were Assyrian until recently. So don't let like language, barrier, or anything keep you from applying. It's a meaningful experience no matter where you come from.
Yeah. Again, we're not trying to be gatekeepers because we want everyone to be able to experience Ultra, but we just want to make it, logistically safe and secure. All right. Any other questions before they head off to their youth summit? In the back. Oh my God, I have to run.
Thank you so much. First of all, we're immensely proud of you. You're amazing young people that are truly a role model for my 2 nephews who are attending the Assyrian convention for the first time. And that's near and dear to my heart. My question is on the economy side. You mentioned remote work, that we could all hire remote workers there. That is something that is incredibly easy to do with Zoom and internet. Most of the work is remote. So I would really appreciate getting some details about how good their English is, what kinds of capabilities they have. The second thing is, what's the average cost of creating a business that you mentioned? The microloans, what's the average cost if they wanted to open like that store that you mentioned or a pizza place? What's the average cost?
So I've had a couple conversations about investing. Someone told me you can open for example, a bar for anywhere between 25 to 50,000 USD. But in terms of wages as well, they make like 1/6 monthly maybe of what we make, and that's like a good salary. You can definitely live off like 1,000 a month there and be well off. So don't have too much on that, but that's why we need to go and ask them, right? So.
So I'll give a few examples from the year previous. So our last 2 years ago, we raised $20,000. The Gishru alumni did that year, and they were able to seed 6 businesses in Iraq. The bar restaurant scene in the cities is more expensive because of property value. So when we're talking about 5,000 each for seating, that's like in our villages. So that's enough to open up a business in the village, which is as important as building up in the city, because city actually has a lot of places to shop and eat and other basic necessities. But in the villages is more that's more difficult for them because they have to travel into the city to do basic things. And so, for example, opening up the coffee shop in Nala provided a nice social gathering for people there that before they would have to travel all the way down to the nearest city, which is Accra, to have coffee, and socialize. So just to answer your question, Gloria, it's about 5,000, 6,000 for remote villages. And in terms of the English proficiency of our people in the homeland, amazing. Yeah. When we went to Erbil, when the first time I went which was 2013, I know some of you guys know him, Onel. He's an Assyrian. They went to the Assyrian schools there. He was speaking in perfect, kind of British English accent, slang more than I knew at the time. So it's just they're very well versed in English. In the Syrian school systems there, they teach them in English, and they follow up a lot of pop culture, so they know all the terminology. So if they're doing remote work, they could speak just as well as we can. So that is not an issue. So that's something that we've always envisioned on doing, is bringing people like Gloria and other people that are much more advanced in entrepreneurship and business to come see it. Go see it, see what the prospects are. Because I myself am a physician, I'm not an entrepreneur, so I'm unable to assess the potential. We need entrepreneurs there. We don't need a lot of advocates. We need more entrepreneurs there, because this is where our critical need is creating a better future, and that's through economic ability. Okay. Any other questions before they head off? You guys can run into them. We have our QR codes here. I also include the smell of recognition. We are an advocacy organization. I always try to remind people we're not tourism, we're advocacy. And so we are pushing on smell of recognition, because that does help with the dilapidated situation currently in Semeta that's desecrating our martyrs. Without further ado, we'll end the panel. Thank you everyone for participating. And we'll see you in Altra.
إيمان وايلة أكسيدنت اتنرابا ناشا ليطي متبال سلطة قد شكلي. اتلا نسيانة بدنا كيسس ات injury law. بيالباية قريمة. إن آتن ينكل بتت بيتا خزموخن يطانة اتلوخن بوقارة مخبرون المنيان التلفون 8 أوروبا شوا وشو 8 تري وشو 5 خا إشتا يعني توكن بيت injuryrights.com. شمي إلى توني كالوغراكس كيام زمن لشان خلية يما.
Welcome to Assyrian National Council of Illinois. Where we provide home care services for the elderly 60 years and older. For over 20 years, ANCI has worked closely with the state of Illinois to strengthen and expand our home care program. We currently service the Chicagoland area, including Cook, Kane, and DuPage counties. If you are interested in finding out more about our home care services, please visit us at our Chicago or Streamwood office.